Hey everybody, Craig Lieberman back at you. Today I'm going to talk about the rejected cars from Too Fast and Furious. We'll get to that right after this message from my sponsor, Yantu. I think most of you know I own an R35 GTR. This car came with run flat tires. However, most owners change their wheels and tires, but this means if you get a flat tire, you are stuck. So Yantu was kind enough to send me their Yantu A22 mini compressor. So I was dying to get this thing because it's much smaller, quieter. Look at this thing. It looks like a mini subwoofer, right? The box shows all the specifications. Then you open up the box and you have this beautiful blue zip pack. It has two compartments, one for the compressor and another one for all the attachments. That's cool. They have so many adapters you can inflate pretty much anything. Basketball or soccer ball or inner tube, bicycles. The unit can be recharged with a cigarette lighter cable or a USB port. Yantu says it goes up to 150 pounds per square inch. So try it out. Click the link in my description right below the video. About 3 years ago, I did a video about the rejected cars for the first movie, so I thought I would talk about rejected cars from this movie. In that video, I talked about the cars that I had recommended to the producers and which cars they decided upon. So today I'll be talking about first the cars that we had in mind for the actors. Here's an example. I wanted wide-body MRSs for one of the characters. Instead, I was overridden, and they chose a 1969 Camaro instead. I wanted a Subaru WRX for the Dodge Challenger. I went so far as to build out the wide-body MRSs completely, but they rejected it, even if they saw it. Win some, lose some. We also recruited some Shelby Cobra replicas, which were also rejected and sold to Charlie's Angels Full Throttle. They were there one day and the next day they were gone. By this time, we had already chosen the GTR for Brian's first car and the Evo for his second. Several other cars for the actors had already been picked already. I also suggested cars like the Acura NSX. We reused the S2000s, we reused the Supra, we reused the RX-7. Cars were getting assigned to the characters very rapidly. By this time, we could consider other cars that were not available for the first movie. Cars like the Subaru WRX, BMW E46 M3, and cars like the 7th gen Toyota Celica, and the Lexus IS300, to name a few. Hyundais were banned, as well as other Econo boxes back then. We did want these Kias and all that kind of stuff, but unlike the first movie, we had the opportunity to present some more Euros because we had a bigger budget. The VW GTI was on my radar. I loved that car. And that year, the car went from 150 horsepower to 190 horsepower. But the time was of the essence. The production team would be moving to Miami to start principal production. Fortunately, I learned lessons from the first movie. I had created a website called moviecars.com after the movie. The website was for people who wanted to get their cars into TV shows, commercials, or even movies. So for 20 bucks, you could load pictures and details about your car, and producers could look at that and then hire you directly. So from 2001 to 2003, I was getting cars cast for TV shows like CSI Miami, Providence, The Division, and other TV shows, and several commercials. And so when Universal's production team for Too Fast and Furious was ready to look at cars, I put out the word through my website and I sent out 1,100 invites to a casting call. What we needed next now was a location where we could look at these cars, and we found a parking lot that seemed to have some room to spread out, or so we thought. I was only planning about 200-300 cars, but on a gray afternoon, 500 cars showed up in Santa Monica. The streets were gridlocked. We had two objectives on that day: to see if we could find cars for some of the characters who still needed cars. The second objective was to recruit background cars for the street racers and the warehouse scramble scene and other scenes. Within 30 minutes, the streets leading to our parking lot were gridlocked. More than 500 cars showed up and the police came out. But when the lowriders showed up, the director, John Singleton, asked me why we were getting so many cars that look like the cars from his earlier movies like Baby Boy or Boys in the Hood. And after a short conversation, he focused on the graphics and the chrome wheels. He said it doesn't really fit in the tuner segment. I tend to agree. John Singleton, the director, walked the whole parking lot. He looked at every car. Toward the end, he pulled me aside. He wasn't really happy. He asked me why we were still getting these cars, and I had explained to him that even if you see Hondas and with chrome wheels and all that kind of stuff, he didn't like that. He was basically focusing on the graphics and the chrome wheels. You see, they feel like lowriders, and I explained to him that there was a segment of tuners who integrate a little lowrider styling in their cars, and those cars are classified in the scene as lowrider Euros. John made it clear to me that he didn't want those cars for any of the actors, but he said go ahead if you're going to use them for background cars. And we certainly didn't ask for SUVs with 1980s graphics, something like this. That was not going to fly. These are the types of cars we were looking for. John Singleton surprised me with his knowledge of cars. He knew what the cool cars and the cars that just didn't fit. So John asked me to use my best judgment. Here's how he said it. If you would own one of those cars, you can sign them. I started turning cars away. Then I started cherry picking some of the tasteful tuner cars and pulled them up to the front where the production team was hanging out. Now, it's not that I didn't want these cars in the movie. These cars were just not what we wanted for their actors' cars. For the background cars, yeah, we'll take every one of them we could. But we didn't leave empty-handed. We did find two cars that piqued our interest. This black NSX and this maroon NSX. We had to pass on the maroon NSX because the car was built with handmade aluminum panels, and if the car got damaged during the filming, we'd be screwed. You can't fix that on set. And we certainly couldn't afford to make 5 copies of that car for stunt cars, so we had to pass on that car as well. In fact, that maroon NSX belonged to R.J. De Vera. I explained to John at the end of the event that if we had gone to an import car show, we could have found every car that we need for the whole film mill, but we were out of time now. The whole production crew moved to Miami 2 weeks later. After another month or so, a memo came across my desk. It said, we need background cars for the warehouse scramble scene and at the boat dock and in the Tej's garage. The casting for these cars fell upon me again. Since I didn't live in Florida, I had to rely upon local car clubs. Fortunately, I knew a guy. His name was Neil Chin. Neil and his wife worked with me on the Naira drag racing series, and we traveled all over the country. Neil was a part of a local car club called All Stars, and he was connected in the tuner scene in South Florida. Neil was able to spread the word fast, and I mean fast. We set up a casting call in the dirt parking lot at Homestead Raceway, south of Miami, and just the way it was in Santa Monica, hundreds of cars showed up. How many hundreds? 732 cars, I think, was the bottom line. Everybody wanted to get in there, and there was a mix of all kinds of cars. But unlike the Santa Monica thing, we would take a variety of cars, including domestics, exotics, lowriders, Euros, and all that kind of stuff. So these cars were going to be used in the warehouse scramble. They were going to be used at the opening street race at the beginning of the film and over at the boat docks when they're playing with the jet skis and all that kind of stuff. In total, we used almost 350 cars. All of the owners got paid. I hope so. I didn't hear any complaints. To my knowledge, no cars ever got damaged. And they get to say, my car was in a Fast and Furious movie. Tuner accessory company called Nopi lent us some cars. So did APC, who sent us their Ford Focus adorned with an American flag. I got to hang around with some of the owners of the cars. They were loving it. Being on set on a movie at night was fun. But listen up. Universal recently revealed that they will be filming in Los Angeles, just as I predicted. There might be a chance that the production will be needing background cars. We will see. If I hear anything, I will pass it around and I'll do a video about it. But the biggest disappointment was my effort to cast the brand new 350Z from Nissan. I reached out to Nissan North America and invited a guy to come down there to talk to us at the production office in Marina del Rey. When he arrived, he was most annoyed. It was almost like he was offended that he had to drive to see us. The Nissan building was only 20 minutes away, and I don't know what he was about. I introduced myself, and again, he couldn't bring himself to be courteous. Perhaps he was confused why we met him in the parking lot, and I told him we were out here for 2 reasons. One, they were looking at my R34 GTR, and we hoped that the Nissan guy would have brought a 350Z to show to the production team. But the guy was just belligerent. So basically Nissan screwed the pooch on this one. They had an opportunity to introduce their newest sport coupe in a major movie, but because of the one guy, he lost it. Fine by me, because they wound up picking my R34 GTRs. So I'm good with that. So my friend from Nissan, I'm gonna leave you with this. You can gargle with my hairy beanbag. That's it for today, everybody. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.